I'd like to welcome all of you to the Chicago Communicator On Point. And this evening we're on point with Officer T-C McCoy, and we're going to listen to him and to Mr. John Davis about the occurrences that have taken place in the Chicago Police Department that we need to be aware of. He had a press conference yesterday, and we received a press release, and it's entitled "A Mother's Death from a Broken Heart While Her Son's Police Officer Killer Goes Free." Now that title was just it was just shocking. You know, the killer goes free. Come on. How many more killers are going to go free? How many more Black people are going to be killed before we can hold somebody accountable? So I'd like to have John introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what role you're playing in this whole thing.
Well, I'm John Davis. In my past professional life, I was a reporter and anchorman at CBS Channel 2 here in Chicago for more than 23 years. And before that, during that time, I also worked as a news director at V103 Radio. And I have been working on this project of the Austin 7 investigation for the past 20 years or so now. And it has been one of these stories where every single year, it seems like you're learning something more and more compelling about this case. Mm-hmm. And also it drives you to wonder, why hasn't the authority figures and the authority mm-hmm. agencies in and around Chicago just simply done the right thing, recognized this for what it was, which was a setup and a cover-up mm-hmm. and a sham robbery mm-hmm. that was basically assigned to officers who had nothing to do with that at all, but they have paid a horrendous price with their lives. One of the Austin 7 defendants was given more than 100 years in prison, and supposedly for staging a robbery or stealing. And yet the man who killed Laquan McDonald, Jason Van Dyke, got 7. I mean, just 7 years.
Ooh, that just sounds so irrational. All of that.
It is irrational, but even more irrational is that this particular case has dragged on for this many years, and every time it is brought up to authority figures, whether it's the state's attorney's office or the U.S. attorney's office or the Chicago Police Department, it seems like people start closing their doors, drawing their blinds, and running away instead of running to the problem and running to this cover up and exposing it for what it was. They run away from it, close their doors, and they don't want to hear from us. They've already
sounds like they might be involved.
Well, there's no discrepancy there. They are to a large extent knee deep in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Officer T-C McCoy, let's have you introduce yourself and talk to us about what we need to know about the 7 officers that have been affected by this whole piece.
Good evening, and thank you, Ms. Carter, for allowing me to come on tonight to explain to your vast audience what we are facing here.
Okay.
As John Davis just alluded to, I've been working on this investigation for the last 25 years, 24 hours a day. Mm. And how it came about is that on the west side of Chicago, where the Austin community lies, the Austin community, let me give you a parameter of what it is.
Okay.
The Austin district starts on the west side of Cicero Avenue, and it ends, that's the east end of the district. And the west end of the district is the west side strike that. It's the west side of Cicero Avenue and the east side of Austin Boulevard, which is 1600 West, 4800 to 1600 West.
Okay.
The north side of Roosevelt Road to the south side of Division Street. It's the second smallest district in the city of Chicago.
Okay.
I used to be a Cook County sheriff for 5.5 years. I came on the Chicago Police Department in March of 1985. I trained in the 13th district off of Wood and Augusta Boulevard. And then I was sent over to the Austin community to work. And when I came over there, the people was just coming into the district station and complaining about all the crime that was going on, and it seemed like they wasn't getting any police service. I teamed up with a gentleman after a few years named Jerry Sappho. Sappho's name should be known because his brother Howard Sappho was one of the founding members of the Afro-American Police League.
Mm-hmm.
And what we attempted to do with two other officers, Al Parks and Leonard Perry, and all three of these gentlemen are Vietnam veterans, being in the war in Vietnam. What we attempted to do was give the people what they deserve for their tax money, and that was paying. They were paying their taxes, and they deserve great police service.
Right.
Little did we know that in the meantime, in August of 1995, just after President Bill Clinton came to the district, because it went from the Austin district was the second worst crime district in the whole city of Chicago when I first got there in 1985.
Okay.
And it ended up in 1995, 10 years later, it ended up being the third most livable district in the whole city of Chicago. Now, at that time, before that, the first district downtown, most people weren't living downtown. That was the number one easy district to live in because there was not much crime down there. And the other district behind that was the 16th district out there, close by O'Hare Airport.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Austin district got the name that, oh man, it's good to move to Austin. The crime rate is all the way down. The President of the United States, Bill Clinton, comes, has a big old ceremony, and Commander Leroy Shields introduces me to the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, in the lobby of the 15th District Station. At that time, it was located at 5327 West Chicago Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a private conversation between me and the President. And he said, I was told that you and your guys were doing a great job for this community. And when he went out and he praised on the policemen working in that community, the citizens were hollering and screaming and cheering. Little did we know, there was a plan hatched by Superintendent Rodriguez, his first deputy, James Townsend, and a gentleman we come to know in these 25 years, me and Mr. John Davis, Michael W. Hoke, who at the time of this praise, he was the commander of narcotics. And his job was to rid the city of all narcotics. But what happened was, when the president came and he praised on us, Rodriguez promoted him to Deputy Superintendent of Internal Affairs. Now, the story that I tell you, and I have to back up for 1 second, is all the stuff that me and Mr. Davis have been working on all these years, these are not conjectures. Okay. So we want your audience to know this is not conjectures. We got hard evidence. We got film, and we got their paperwork, their reports with their signatures on it, that we can verify and prove everything we say.
Okay. Thank you for that. So
now, of course. So now what happens is he's in narcotics, and he did a report later out of this magazine called Law and Order magazine out of Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Where he stated that they had this problem in the Austin district where policemen were robbing drug dealers. In a few weeks, I'll be 72 years old, and you can't find one person in 72 years to say that I begged, borrowed, stole, or even had a conversation with anyone in my whole 72 years on this planet about taking anything from anyone. But that was their premise of starting this fraud conspiracy. Okay, so now they start working August to December. Little did we know, but me and Mr. Davis found out, that Mayor Richard M. Daley was behind this big alleged investigation. He gave Michael Hoke and these 19 men that he brought out of narcotics with him $1.5 million from August the 1st to December the 31st to conduct this investigation, other than their salary. He gave them $1.5 million, just these 19 officers, but they recruited 6 officers out of internal affairs. They promoted these 19 officers from narcotics when they came to internal affairs, and they made them all police agents. Now pay attention to your audience. Police agents, not police officers. They are police agents. And during the course of my investigation, I got a letter from someone that said police agent. I thought it was a joke, and I was getting ready to throw it away, and I decided to call the union. And I said, what is a police agent? Is this a joke? And the female at the union, FOP union, said, no, a police agent is a title in the Internal Affairs Division, and it's like a detective title where they get at least $10,000 more than a regular police officer.
Whoa.
So they got an increase of $10,000 to come over and do an investigation on me and Jerry Sappho, Al Parks, Leonard Perry, and the officers who were coming on our 80 team. We had a team in that district called the 80 team. And we were so known in that community that the people would call the desk and say, would you please tell the 80 team to come over here? They are selling drugs. They got guns over here. And when we come, we would make numerous arrests. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got killed. And I've got to point this out also, Mrs. Carter. Nobody on my team in the whole time that I have ever been or was police officer for the Chicago Police Department, no one ever had a money beef. No one. So now they're investigating these officers for money beefs. We found out later during the course of our investigation, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So they didn't have nothing, according to the article in Law and Order magazine that Michael Hoke did. The gentleman that was interviewing him, he said, well, when we got there, they thought it was going to be a slam dunk. They're going to do something. We would fall for it, and it didn't happen. So going to August, they couldn't get nothing. Going to September, they couldn't get nothing. Going to November, they couldn't get nothing. So in December, they decided to stage a robbery. A robbery of a FBI agent named Deborah Jones Buggs. And the premise that they used was that she was supposed to be a drug dealer's girlfriend out of Milwaukee. Coming down to Chicago to buy drugs. And they were going to set me up to be the robber of this FBI agent.
Why you?
Well, because, you know, me and my partner were the most known people in the city of Chicago as far as when it comes to police work. In fact, when I used to go over to 26 in California, I used to get stopped by people going to court on the other side that was fighting their cases, and they would stop and talk to me, complete strangers, and tell me that they heard about me and my partner on the west side.
Oh, see, you all give too much praise.
Of course. So now what we're doing is we are now he sets up this alleged robbery, stage robbery, and he hatched a plan. And I want your audience to listen to this plan that Mr. Davis and I found amazing all these years, and it gets more and more sinister every time we talk about it. This is what they call their probable cause. You have to have a probable cause to start an investigation. And without a probable cause, you violated my civil rights, because I have never been accused of taking, stealing, or doing anything wrong. And if you start an investigation, you violate my civil rights. And if I find out about it, I can sue the police department. So this is what they did. They and staged a robbery at 5721 West Bloomingdale on the northwest side of Chicago in the 25th district. They recruited a young lady out of the FBI named Deborah Jones Buggs, with Herbert Collins, the black FBI agent in charge at that time. He gave them permission to use one of his agents so that they could make this a federal case. So what they did was they staged the robbery on December the 8th, 1995. So they had her come to IAB Corrupt Practices headquarters, which is out somewhere that nobody would know where they at. And they gave her an undercover police car, Chicago police car, to drive. And they gave her a radio. And they told her to drive over to 5721 West Bloomingdale, where an officer named Lorenzo Jackson will be filming this robbery so that they could use this robbery to arrest me, convict me, and sentence me away for the rest of my life.
Oh my God.
Well, they needed me to participate in the robbery, correct?
Right.
But at the time that they did this robbery, I was on vacation. So they got a gentleman that looked something similar to me. They recruited a gentleman named Charles Vaughn. Charles Vaughn lived on Hardy and Augusta Boulevard in the 900 block. And in order to get Charles Vaughn to participate, they got a gentleman that me and John Davis later found out, and we believe he was a Chicago police officer named Myron Bougie Robinson, who knew Mr. Charles Vaughn, to call him up and to say to him, hey man, why don't you want to participate in a robbery of a drug dealer's girlfriend? And Mr. Charles Vaughn agreed because he needed some money because he was fighting a UUW case in the courts and he was on house arrest and he needed the money to get off house arrest. So he agreed because he believed that this guy, Myron Robinson, better known as Bougie, was his friend. So now what happened is he says to, pardon me?
Oh, someone's talking. Okay, no problem. It's muted.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So what happened was now Myron Robinson tells Charles Vaughn, I need you to come over to this location. Well, Charles Vaughn tells Mr. Robinson, I don't have a car to get to that location. So I surmised this during the course of my investigation. Michael Hoke is listening to all this because he's the setup of all this. So he tells Myron Robinson to tell Mr. Vaughn, we'll bring you a car. Meet us at the laundromat on Augusta and Pulaski Road, and we'll bring you a car. Mr. Vaughn agrees because he believes if he gets some money, he could go and pay his bond and not be on house arrest. Because now he won't be confined. After the phone is hung up, we know this is true, but I'll surmise this because we got evidence of it. Michael Hope turns to a sergeant in Internal Affairs named Peter Kokonis and tells him to give his car keys to his undercover raggedy white Mercury Sable to Mr. Robinson to take over to Mr. Vaughn, who is not a police officer, so that he could participate in this robbery.
Lord have mercy.
That's like a policeman giving a criminal his gun.
Yes.
Then he tells a gentleman named Herb Brown Jr. to follow Mr. Robinson over to Pulaski and Augusta Boulevard in his black Caprice department issue Chevrolet, and watch him turn the car over to Charles Vaughn. Then Mr. Robinson is to get back into Mr. Michael W. Hope's black Caprice Chevrolet. And Mr. Brown is to bring him back over to Bloomingdale and Menard and let Mr. Robinson out to walk down the street and get in the FBI agent's car that he had met earlier that day, So when Mr. Vaughn comes up, he would identify Mr. Vaughn as T.C. McCoy, the policeman that's in the Austin district that robs drug dealers.
Oh my goodness. A ploy.
When they get to Pulaski and Augusta Boulevard, Mr. Vaughn is there with another police officer, we believe is a police officer, and his name is Philip. And Mr. Vaughn tells Mr. Robinson, you know, where I recruited him to go with me, to go over there to rob the drug dealer's girlfriend. Mr. Robinson goes back and tells Mr. Brown what was just told to him by Mr. Vaughn. And Mr. Brown, Herb Brown Jr., tells Myron Robinson to tell Philip to get in the car with them, but to sit in the front and tell him he got to sit in the front seat. He can't sit in the back seat because Mr. Brown don't know if Phil got a pistol on him.
Oh my goodness.
And Mr. Myron Robinson is sitting in the back seat. They proceed over to Bloomingdale and Menard. And on the film, you see Mr. Robinson walking down the street towards this, it appears to be a black two-door automobile. It might be a Chevrolet. Then all of a sudden, on the film, you see a car driving, about a minute, 2 minutes later, you see a car driving past the FBI vehicle where Mr. Robinson had just got into. But you see the camera try to take the car out of the scene. Later, we found out that that car was Michael W. Hoke's black Caprice Chevrolet that Mr. Brown was driving, that Mr. Hoke told him to stay at the location of Menard and Bloomingdale and don't move, but he moved anyway. And he was trying to reach him on the phone to ask him, why did he move? But Mr. Brown had turned off his radio. A few minutes later, you see the same vehicle come back around, pull up behind the FBI Chicago Police Department car, and a gentleman get out, and he's got on a police commander's baseball cap. And he goes and opens up the passenger's door, brings Mr. Robinson out, does some stuff, and Mr. Robinson is directing him to get into the car. The man's name is Phil. According to our earlier records, we was trying to participate or find someone to tell us his name. We couldn't find this gentleman's name because all the reports said Phil L.N.U. Last name unknown.
Last name unknown. Wow.
So then he's in the car with an FBI agent who has been trained to find terrorists all over the world who could be in a stadium, a soccer field stadium, and she could spot him a mile away. And he gets in the car with her. We find out that he takes $3,200. Let's strike that. He takes $3,700 out of the armrest. And that while he's doing that, Mr. Charles Vaughn drives up in the raggedy white undercover police vehicle. Now, again, remind yourself that this gentleman is not a Chicago police officer. He doesn't work for the police department. He doesn't work for the city. And he's not allowed to drive any city vehicle. He jumps out. He opens up the passenger side door of the female FBI agent, and she miraculously just falls to the ground without being touched. You see Phil come around the back of the car, over on the driver's side, move Mr. Vaughn out the way, shut the door, and goes back behind the back of the car where he's touched by Myron Robinson.
TC,
And we believe, yes, sir.
Wanda, could I share my screen?
Sure, absolutely.
Because I think it's very important that
I was going to ask if you had some footage.
Yes. I want to share my screen. This is the alleged robbery. Okay.
Wow.
That's the
Oh
white
my
sable.
God.
That's the white sable. Those are all of the neighborhood actors who are working in concert with
Oh my God.
with Michael W. Hoke. And there's a sable. There's an FBI car in the middle of it all. What TC just described was this. The guys come around, they go inside the car, and now this guy's getting out of the white sable. He runs back like that's not a police officer. Come on. And this is the FBI agent, Deborah Jones Buggs. She just falls out the car. He doesn't have to pull her out. She just falls to the ground as if she is at this particular point a willing subject, to a phony staged robbery. And these are the other sort of characters that TC has talked about who just casually get out of the car. I mean, there's no urgency here. They're pushing around. This is like Keystone Cops. This looks like a circus if it weren't so serious.
Thank you, Dave. John,
There's
that's fantastic.
The sable is pulling off. That's a police vehicle. That's Michael W. Hoke's car. And there's the agent. She's standing up now, and they don't know what to do with. So get back on the ground. So and the people that are filming this are from the Internal Affairs Division of the Chicago Police Department, and they're going out of their minds because this is cartoonish. This was not supposed to look like this. It's supposed to look a lot more professional. But you got a bunch of amateur criminals here who are just creating probably one of the most indictable pieces of evidence I have ever seen. This is all the evidence anybody needs to see to realize that this so-called robbery by the Austin 7 suspects was nothing more than a staged cartoonish kind of incident that should never, ever have been used as evidence. I certainly wouldn't have used it if I was a legitimate police investigative agency. Now the agent, FBI agent gets in the car. She gets casually looks down to make sure that the guys, are gone. They're out of the frame. They're no longer needed in this scheme. So, and now they realize that, okay, where are the keys to the car? Okay. Oh, now we don't have the keys.
That's
Walking around looking for
that is so stupid.
Look at this. I mean, come on.
Stupid criminals.
Going to believe
my
this is a robbery by seasoned veteran police officers.
And this is supposed to be the Austin 7 is supposed to have done this?
The Austin 7.
Oh my God.
Oh
my God.
Oh my God is correct.
Absolutely.
That's what makes it makes it laughable if it weren't so serious. And now they're exasperated. So they got to walk down the street talking and
stupid. So even though they were robbed, they're not trying to call